coming to terms with Göbekli Tepe. Do you know what Göbekli Tepe is? I'm waiting. Tell me. That's right. It's a pot-bellied pig. It was a hill that stood out. It was the highest peak in a local area in Turkey. And in that local language, Göbekli Tepe means the pot-bellied pig, which is how the hill was shaped. You know, even before 1996, there were some people that knew that it was there. But a guy from Germany, Smythe, equivalent of Smith, who passed away recently. I don't know exactly what year, but within the last 2 or 3. But Smythe, Dr. Smythe, is he's the one who tied some things together with it, tied it back to some other more recent areas, I guess you could say facilities, because I really hadn't told you what it was other than the fact that I've said it was a pot-bellied pig hill, a big mound. Well, anyway, Smythe started excavating this mound and taking some soil samples and doing carbon dating on it from inside of and around a hill. And what they've come to find out is that it's a 12,000-year-old temple, the oldest temple known to mankind. And the really cool thing about it is that it's only a very, like 20% of it that's been excavated. But they've done, some ground imaging and know that there's, that other a huge amount, more than half left to dig up. I think there's I don't know. It's a really weird complex. Let me just say it like this, and it's composed of these spirals or circles, and it's stone. So you have some 12,000-year-old stone carved temples in Turkey that was built 12,000 years ago, and then around 11,000 years ago was covered up. By covered up, I mean that people took very meticulous duty to go in and carry debris, dirt, rocks, sticks, limbs, whatever, and cover this thing up. So it was a stone temple that has stone temples, these spirals, and there's many of them. I don't know exactly how many there are, but there are at least 20. And it's not huge. I mean, I'll just put a wiki in here and you can look at the size and dimensions. But if you're interested in it, you'll go look it up because it's really awesome. It's a huge complex built long before people were thought to have worked on such huge projects. Because, it takes a massive effort to create something like this. And basically, someone would have to be living in abundance or very interested in sharing knowledge with a future to construct such a thing. And the really cool part of it is that some of the pieces, the stonework, it's just megalithic. Okay, this is a megalithic structure. You're talking about 20 plus feet long pieces of stone that weigh up to 40 to 70 tons, I believe that's what the dynamics are. And they were dragged, I think, 3 kilometers up and down hills to get there. The quarry is maybe 3 kilometers. I think it's 3 kilometers, not 3 miles. So they went over there and they quarried these huge rocks. They carved images on them. In fact, they were carved into this. In other words, there's arms on this human-like structure with other drawings on it, other carvings on it, and some of them are animal There's a lot of snakes. There's pigs. There's human structures. There's this weird H thing that they think may be the humans holding hands. Yeah, I've heard a couple of theories so far. I haven't gotten as far into it as I want to. As you can tell, I'm not as knowledgeable about the structure, what is contained in specifically in the stone. But there's a lot going on there. I mean, there's like some solar-shaped, abstract carvings, and by that I mean like a crescent moon and a sun. It looks like an eclipse. There's some general south orientation, which looks like it's looking at something that occurs on the winter solstice. Because there's some tie-ins with Orion and, of course, Sirius. And, I've heard some theories, with the snakes that kind of tied it into some kind of a Kundalini yoga. I've heard Graham Hancock suggest that what happened is there was an ancient civilization that was living near the coast, and they after the Ice Age came, some kind of a catastrophic event occurred, and a lot of people that could be the people from the sea that Plato spoke of, could have been them that were rushing through, and they went and built this big structure as a way to document that knowledge was known before this catastrophic event and flood. I mean, there's all kinds of tie-ins to this thing. It's new. I mean, yes, it was just started being excavated at around 1996 by Dr. Smith, however you want to refer to him. I've already had that discussion, but again, it goes for noting what his name is. It's also German, so there may be some spelling errors that you may have to work around with. But you can find it on the Wikipedia page, I'm sure. But anyway, so there, it's just, since 1996, so you're looking, maybe 20 years or so, a couple, 28, 22, 23 years, that is actually being looked at and excavated. And there's lots of data out there, but, it's so new. I mean, 20 years is just, 20 years goes by fast. I went through 2 and some change of 20-year periods. And I know how fast 20 of them will go by. And I mean, it's just almost too much for one lifetime involved in this Göbekli Tepe, because of the fact that if you even think about the fact that it's, something created that long ago, 12,000 years before present, that's 10,000 BC. I mean, you're getting back there at the time when the Ice Age was ending. You're back there. You're way back. You're before people used stone. I mean, what's typically thought of the age period that that people think of when you think of stone work. You're thinking of people picking up a chisel, 5,000 years ago or so. That's kind of whenever the documented history goes. I mean, that's kind of how far things go back. But it's just this weird coincidence that Göbekli Tepe was buried, and we don't know what else was buried. I tell you right now, the thing that fascinates me more than anything when you start thinking about ancient is what's up under the water. What was covered up under the flooding? We know the seas rose quite a bit, 600 feet. I've heard it said many times. It's 300 to 600 feet, whatever, 400 feet. We don't know for sure. And of course, it wouldn't do it evenly because land, the coast wouldn't be affected evenly because sea level. There's mounds, dirt, and big, huge areas where so as from all that, it would just be affected about differently, contingent upon sea level and all that kind of business. So it wouldn't, like I said, 400 feet, like where the shoreline was, 400 feet wouldn't be consistent. It would be contingent upon where the water needed to go. So there's all kinds of things that are covered up. We know for a fact that people, by and large, live near the coast. I think it's like 70% of people right now live within so many miles of the coast, or so many feet, or whatever it is. So, there could be areas that were right there near the coast where people like to live, maybe 30 miles out now, 60 miles out. It's contingent upon the lay of the land. And of course, it may not be under too deep of water. They found places out in the Mediterranean that where the water is not necessarily that much. It's not like it's miles deep. It's just 60 feet underwater. A lot of it. You just don't know that it's there. And of course, when things are underwater, it gets covered up quick. Things change. It's just, it can get worn away quicker. Things can look less man-made when affected by water for a while. But I bet you there's a bunch of pristine things down there as well. If it's rock. Which would mean that, of course, like Göbekli Tepe, that people worked with rock sooner. And it looks like from Göbekli Tepe that we indeed did work with rock quicker. We've already learned from Ötzi that at least 1,000 years earlier we were messing with copper. Because dealing with Ötzi, the Iceman, who was found over there in the Italian Alps. It was, we didn't know that people of his 5,300 years ago were using copper. We thought it was 1,000 years sooner, or closer to us. So that changed things. And of course, we're learning things that change things all the time. But it's just so hard to digest everything associated with Göbekli Tepe. Because it changes a lot of things. Of course, people will deny it. Well, that's not true, and blah, blah, blah. But, it's true. There's a 12,000-year-old temple. It has a lot of things to do with the sun on it. It has a lot of things to do with snakes. Some theories that are thrown out there. People saying that it's all tied up with this. Everybody that, that sea people came up, they built this temple, and then from there they may have spread back out again. People went to different places, and who knows what happened. You know how it is with human beings. They come here and they go, and they try somewhere else, and you kind of go with wherever it's at. And speaking of where it's at, another very interesting thing about where Göbekli Tepe is the fact that that's kind of the general area where farming came about. Now, you think about that for a minute. So let's just say that, things go back a little further than we thought. Things have changed. Man, there's no telling how long there's been human civilization. If people lived on the coast and it's flooded, there could be another 10,000 years worth of history right there. So, you could feasibly see that if there's truly been Homo sapiens sapiens for 50,000 years, what culture could we have developed before? Kind of washed away, got, the ice age ended, the floods came. It could be God, I don't know. However, there was a time before, and, it looks like the floods really occurred about 9,500 years ago, 10,000 years ago. 10,000 BC, that area. There's 1,000-year variance there. When may even be 2 catastrophic events that occurred back there during the end of the Ice Age. Who knows? We don't know for sure yet. But uncovering this Göbekli Tepe really does change things for that. You're sitting there going, well, were there ancient farmers that brought the technology forward? Stone cutting forward? Because, the list of tools that they have listed to build this thing is, just flint. Of course, there's a lot of flint in the area, in that part of the world. Interesting! It's very interesting to see. I spent 15 minutes mumbling about what I don't know about it, but I suspect you could probably spend 15 minutes studying it and learn a lot. Maybe a couple of hours. Actually, I have more than 15 minutes invested in it myself. 15-minute talking, maybe, but several hours in studying. And I still don't know anything. Because I really, it's hard to find information on this thing because it's so new to finding people to put forth a good explanation of what it is and what it means. I have no idea. There's a lot of kinds of imagery there that I don't understand. Oh well, but you know what? It's Thursday. 13th of September 2018. This is a little, I think I'm calling episode 4, Brad's Bits, 3 bits. Brad's 3 bits, episode 4. Digesting Göbekli Tepe. Have fun. Be safe. Over and out.